Hello, friends, and welcome to another special program here on Channel 17 Town Meeting Television. Last time I sat down with you all, we were showcasing C-SPAN's Cities Tour last month, and this month we have something just as exciting, if not more exciting, our very own Vermont International Film Festival for the year of 2017. And I'm very fortunate to be joined today by Orly Yatton, the Executive Director of Vermont International Film Festival. Orly, welcome.
Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here at Channel 17.
So another year is already upon us. If we can all take a moment, breathe deep, the world is still turning and film festivals are still happening one way or another.
They are.
So I wonder, what distinguishes 2017 for the Vermont International Film Festival, Orly?
In some ways, it's not distinguishable from previous years in the sense that we are a curated festival. That is, you could say, what distinguishes us from many other festivals, but we have been going that path for close to 10 years now. And a curated festival means that we have a programming committee that works for about 6 months earlier in the year, watching many films, discussing, meeting every month, discussing them, rejecting some, adding new ones, rejecting others, until we finally, around August this year, we put together the final program that is here. And that's what I mean by curated. Many festivals are what's called a call for entry, which means that anyone, any filmmaker who's made a film can just pay some money and submit it to the festival director or the committee. And we think that the purpose of a film festival is to share with our community, share with our audience what the curators basically think is the best and most interesting output of cinema worldwide. And when we put together a program, like any curator, even in a gallery, it's not just a random selection of paintings or a random selection of films, but we look at the connections between the films and we start seeing patterns, and it's amazing actually how much there is a zeitgeist among independent filmmakers around the world. Every year we see new themes, as it were, or interests that are shared by filmmakers around the world. We don't live in isolation. And what's very interesting is that even though there are shared points of focus, points of interest, every culture has its own take on it. So that's what distinguishes us from other festivals, certainly.
And some cultures, multiple takes in the same festival even.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the Vermont International Film Festival is different from other film festivals in one way that I've noticed. Everybody else wants to talk simply and plainly about the quality of films that they're offering. I think the New York Film Festival is the best known curated film festival here in the United States, and they offer up XYZ from ABC, whom you've all heard of and whose work you have a pretty solid blue book value of. But this festival actually takes as its point of view, its curated perspective, the notion that first and foremost, we deserve to look at the films and we deserve to privilege the films that are actually talking about the real material reality of the world we're living in. Meaning we're not venturing so much into the realm of fantasy. We are looking at films that deal with the actuality of the world. And this used to come across in Vermont Film Festival's programming as a focus on human rights and social justice. What was the title of the film festival once upon a time?
It used to be called the Earth Peace International Film Festival.
And while the name has changed, I'm pretty confident that the focus on reality, social reality, and even social justice as that sort of incarnates itself in all these various cultures, that remains a focus in the film festival. Would you agree?
Yes and no, actually. Yes, there is a large percentage. If you look at the this year's program guide.
In your 7 days, week of October 4th.
And online, VTIFF.org. Yes, many of the films do relate to reality, if you like, one way or another. And in that sense, maybe things haven't changed so much. But what has changed dramatically, I think, is that whereas in the past, the main reason for selecting a film was the issue it was dealing with, and also at the very beginning it was only documentaries, and we have at least 50% of the films here are fiction films. Not that they can't relate to reality. But the main criteria used to be what the issue was, and because the festival used to mainly be concerned with human rights, and then it expanded a little bit to the environment and ecology, that was the reason for selecting films. It didn't look so much at the quality of the film, how it presents its subject, and so on. That has definitely changed. We are a film festival. We are not an issue festival. The primary condition for a film being in the festival is because we think that it is a great example of the cinematic arts. Cinema is its own medium. It's an artistic medium and a medium of communication, of course. It's a very powerful medium in that sense. So we would never, just because we might think that an issue is important, but the film may not be good, include it in the festival.
I think that's a wonderful way to serve up these matters at hand, is in the most cinematically appealing way you can find. I think we've all sat down in front of a film that had plenty to offer in terms of its subject matter, but was a bit underwhelming in terms of how it chose to deliver that material. So I'm so appreciative as a volunteer, as somebody who's been going to the film festival, as somebody who wants to see people in Burlington see as many great films as they can. I'm glad that we're kind of dilating the film festival to include more features, and especially more stylistically bold features. Do you have any stylistically bold features that you want to mention?
Well,
which are featured this year?
Maybe the most stylistically bold and in some ways cinematically almost the most perfect film is actually not a new film. We have three films, we have three French films in the festival this year. Our opening night film, Faces, Places, or in French, Paysage, Visage, by the one and only Agnès Varda and her collaborator on this film, JR, the photographer. We closed the festival with a musical called Footnotes. But in the middle, we have a third French film that was actually made 50 years ago, and it's called Le Samouraï, The Samurai, by Jean-Pierre Melville. And it's actually a double anniversary because it's the 50th year of the film, but it's also the 100th anniversary of Jean-Pierre Melville's birth.
Really?
Yes. So that film, you could say almost in a sense, has nothing to do with reality. It's not about the social issue, but it is a prime example of how you can make a film and not a frame is out of place, not a frame is extraneous. Everything about it uses cinematic language to, I think, perfection.
Sure. I mean, we shouldn't have to beat you all too hard over the head to tell you that Le Samurai is a very important film, and a film that's really transformed by the experience of going into a theater and seeing it fresh with people, with big sound and big colors. Having said that, it also casts a very long shadow, and Quentin, no less than Quentin Tarantino, is a huge acolyte of this film. And so if it's good enough for Quentin, I hope it would be good enough for you fine people out there.
It's good enough even if Quentin Tarantino hadn't mentioned it. I don't think Melville needed Tarantino to...
and so that's the kind of film that maybe wouldn't have appeared 10, 15 years ago, and yet we stay in good company with Ms. Varda, whose other film, The Gleaners and I, that was featured in the first Vermont International Film Festival
Wonderful
that I had
film.
the privilege of volunteering on. So we do have a kind of continuity, you might say, where Vermont International Film Festival does have solid relationships with certain filmmakers, and that we keep featuring their work. The world may not be lining up to, bestow Oscars on Agnès Varda, but she knows she's got a friend in us.
Yeah, and you've been volunteering for a long time.
On and off.
On and off.
I've watched the festival from afar with great pride, seeing that, as with everything we do, we don't do it the biggest here in Vermont. We're a small state. but within the context of what we can accomplish, we accomplish quite a bit. And I think this film festival is a good indication of that.
We actually feel our program. We have a programming committee of 6 people. I chair the committee, and I think we're all in agreement that this year the program is probably one of the strongest as a collectivity than we've had for many, many years.
Yeah, well, I look
very proud of our selection.
I look at this programming committee and I see people who have made it their lives to see that film is honored in this city. People who have put in the work and continue to put in the work. So we just want to honor them real quick. Seth Jarvis, Eric Ford, Julia Swift, Paula Maraconji, Vioke Maraconji, Orly herself, and Mr. Luke Baines. So it's a huge job, and it's finally happening. Are there any events that are not movies that you're especially excited about? Because it's not so much about seeing the movie itself at a film festival, but about how the movie is in dialogue and polylogue with everything else that's going on.
You're absolutely right. It is all about dialogue. That's why it's important to go to a theater and a festival to see films, because it's not the same experience as sitting at home and watching it alone. It's a festival creates a community. And if you go and if you attend the festival, and it actually can be a totally immersive experience, especially if you get a pass so you don't have to worry about buying individual tickets and so on. You get to see, you come out of the theater or you go into the theater, there are always events happening in the lobby, and it's intentional. We have daily receptions, for example, at the end of every afternoon before the evening screening. And it's not because we want to be restaurateurs. That's not our business. And by the way, we are extremely thankful to all the restaurants and caterers who are sponsoring our daily receptions, and to Zero Gravity Brewery who are doing the cash bars. But the reason we are doing that is because we want people to stay and talk and exchange opinions and tell each other, have you seen such and such? This is amazing, and it reminded me of the other film, and so on. There are connections between these films. So the lobby is the kind of the heart of the festival, and it's very important to be there and to exchange views and see what else is happening. We do have a few other events that are not strictly film screenings. One of them is Steve Woloshin, who is a world-renowned animator. He paints he draws on film, on the celluloid, and then it becomes animated. This is going to be his 3rd year at the festival. He comes down from Montreal and conducts this workshop about animating on film, and it's a free event for the whole family, and it's great fun, and people love it. And we also have a multimedia event called Party Words that we'll be showing, I think, on Saturday, October 28th in the evening. And that's presented by John Rasmussen and Al Larson from Champlain College. And it's a kind of audience participatory event where it's... the truth is, I don't exactly know, because I haven't seen it. I've only seen
it. It hasn't happened yet. No one does.
It hasn't happened yet, so we don't exactly know what is going to happen. But I know they've been working on it, and lots of local people are actors in it.
No kidding.
And it should be great fun. And it does refer to cinema and to TV and Hollywood Squares and things like that. So that should be fun. And we're also considering having a VR, virtual reality event as a sidebar. Yep.
Very good. Well, it went off great at Innovation Week last year, and there's no reason that shouldn't be included in the, again, the ever-dilating Vermont International Film Festival. So these screening events are occurring right here in downtown Burlington, Vermont, at the Main Street Landing building at the corner of College and Lake Streets. Is that all right?
It's the Main Street Landing Performing Arts Center, not the Main Street. Yeah.
We used to work out of that building.
That's
eons
right.
ago.
Yeah, it's mostly there, but we also have, because we value short films, and just as much as feature length. So what we started a few years ago, and it's been a great success, so we are continuing, why not? At Burlington City Arts on Church Street, we have during the weekday at noon a program of shorts, every day a different program of shorts.
Sure, there was a Cuban theme one day last year, as I recall.
There was, and there's animation, and there's various Sundance shorts. We show the Sundance shorts program that is touring, and it's a great event because these programs, the lunchtime shorts, last from 12 to 1 during people's lunch hour. We provide lunch for the price of a ticket. And what better way to spend your lunchtime?
At the BCA.
At the BCA.
And so this is really circling in on what the challenge of a film festival is today, when people do have overwhelming access to all kinds of digital media. And some would even argue that, well, gee, if mainstream films have taken such a hit, and Hollywood has taken quite a hit, we know, what's the point of even having film festivals? Can't I just reach out to my Criterion collection online and my Netflix online and get every Sergio Leone and every Rene Clair and everything that's ever come out under the sun? And shoot, I may be even to be able to track down some really, really old films that you can't see at a film festival. So what's the purpose of staging a film festival today when people are already so spoon-fed everything that they could possibly need?
Well, certainly you can watch Criterion, and I highly recommend Criterion, by the way, and Janus Films. They have a wonderful library, and do supplement your festival-going experience with watching films at home, really quality cinema. I wish we could show films year-round in our own theater, and which would enable us to show a much wider and larger selection of films. At the moment, we are limited to the 10-day Vermont International Film Festival. We've also added 2 3-day festivals in winter, our Global Roots film festivals. Plus, we have our monthly screenings, but it's still limited. There's so many good films out there. But as we pointed out, it's very, very different watching a film alone at home, or even with a couple of friends on a screen, and going and immersing yourself in a publicly shared event, a community event. Because if you watch a film in a dark theater, films were made to be seen in a dark room with a large screen and an excellent sound system in a room full of strangers.
Strangers, that's right.
And friends.
Yeah.
That's fine. Because it's as if, I mean, think about how sometimes you might watch, for example, to take the most obvious example, a comedy. You might sit at home alone and chuckle, or you might think a film is not very funny. But if you sit in an audience and you hear somebody laughing behind you, it'll make you laugh. That doesn't mean to say you have to feel what other people feel. But it's a completely different, you get the vibes from around you, and you start feeling that you're all sharing an experience. And a shared experience is very different from a lonely experience.
Definitely. And to call back to what you're talking about creating that dialogue, sometimes a film might set off impressions that can't really be dealt with during the screening, and they need to be unpacked after the fact. And sometimes
they need to be digested.
Yeah, sometimes you have to reach out to people who have specific experience with these matters at hand. I don't know what's going on in XYZ place from which this film came, and so that's why not only do we have the opportunity to engage our fellow audience members in dialogue, but in some cases these films are actually attended by the filmmaker.
Absolutely.
Can we talk for a quick moment?
Yeah, we try as much as possible to get the filmmakers to attend the films, to possibly introduce them, and certainly be there after the screening to engage in dialogue with the audience. We cannot afford to bring people from overseas yet. Maybe one day we will be able to afford that.
Looking forward to it.
We can afford to bring people closer, whether it's from
Montreal,
Canada or the US. And we try that as much as possible, but they aren't always available. So the next best thing, and it's proven to be very successful, they can Skype in remotely, and be there for Q&As. And some of our best Q&As in recent years have been with directors who've Skyped in.
If I can just chime in for a moment, that was a real sincere pleasure that most people in the United States will not have the opportunity for. Louis Clark is a legendary filmmaker, an experimental filmmaker. You might say his closest artistic antecedent would be Roy Lichtenstein.
Yeah,
in
very
terms
similar
of
in style.
in terms of reproducing a lot of classic comic strips in unlikely ways. Anyway, he casts a very long shadow, and most people assume that they're going to go their whole lives without being able to touch base with Mr. Clark and figure out what's really going on in there. He Skyped with the session. He really unloaded on us. He was not cagey or anything. He was not a Warhol-esque kind of, dismissive respondent to questions. And he really enriched the experience in a way that I never would have appreciated that film 66 that he had presented last year unless he had been there on hand to basically be defiant and challenge my notions and not tell me what I wanted to hear, frankly, but tell me things that I didn't expect and enhanced the film.
Yeah, so that's sort of really a very important part of going to the festival. Something you don't get at home, by the way. Meet the filmmakers, talk to the filmmakers, get an opportunity to ask them questions. It's to me, it's all part of the festival-going experience. Yeah.
And what about for yourself personally, even if it's not being attended by the filmmaker? Is there any one film that you're basically going to drop whatever conversation is happening, whatever networking is happening, you're going to drop it all and go see this film at all costs?
People ask me, what's your favorite film in the festival? And all I can say is, imagine if you're a parent, somebody asked you, who's your favorite child?
Well, that's easy.
You can't answer that. To me, the favorite thing is actually the program as a whole. Really, it is. I cannot, because it's like, it's apples and oranges. You can't compare a documentary from Argentina about a remote indigenous population in a small town to a French musical about these women who work in a high-end shoe factory and go on a labor strike.
I know the one you mean. Well, I think that the future of Vermont International Film Festival is certainly very bright. Is there anything that this year that you would especially like people to reach out? If there's one event or one film that you'd like people to say, hey, maybe this film festival's got things to offer that I didn't know about before. Maybe I stayed away from it before, but this time I'm going to go because Orly told me about X, Y, and Z.
Well, there's different things. I'm not going to single out a specific title, but if you think about what's on offer in the commercial theaters, it's very, very rare, for example, that we are offered commercially films that aren't in the English language. Subtitled films. I know certain people say, oh, I don't like to see subtitled films, but if they do that, they are cutting themselves off from 90% of excellent world cinema and world cultures. It's a very narrow point of view. It may be a little bit more of an effort, but you get used to it very quickly. So I would say, do try and go to as many foreign language films as possible in the festival. We're very proud this year. I think maybe for the first time ever, we actually have films from all 5 continents.
Really?
It's usually quite difficult for us to present films from African countries, for example.
They're often co-financed, and oftentimes the creative talent behind the camera comes as much from abroad as it does from internally.
Yeah.
So it's one sort of complication with the African cinema.
Yeah, and but this year we have 3 films, plus 3 films, one from Mali, one from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and one from South Africa. And they are all very, very interesting, very, very different. And we have an Egyptian film as well. So that's amazing. We have Latin American films. And
certainly in the case of the documentary from the Congo, a criminally underrepresented
City
region.
of Joy.
Yeah, and a place that cries out to be basically known to the world. Yeah. We have a few minutes left, and I do want to mention that it looks like you have all hands on deck this year. Everybody showed up to help you out with this film festival, and a number of local luminaries have been assisting with the film festival for years and years. And it looks like you have a volunteer force that you're having to basically bat away because there are so many people clamoring to volunteer for the film festival. What's left to conquer?
Well, first of all, we love our volunteers, and it's always gratifying that the same volunteers come back year after year. You know, they must be having a good time.
I'm sure Judy is back.
Although we could certainly, if anybody's watching this, we could certainly do with more volunteers this year. So there we go. And yes, we have amazing sponsors. Both we have a much larger number of business sponsors this year, and we're very, very grateful to them. And I think I would like to urge everybody to check out on our website or on the back of the guide to see who's been sponsoring us, because we all need to thank them because they make it possible. Plus individuals who have sponsored individual films. And I love that when we have these friends of the festival who want to share, personally want to share their love of films with their friends in the community.
Yeah, if you're a Burlington community member, you really owe it to yourself to pour through the program here and see, for example, which films Barbara McGrew, John Douglas, and the list goes on and on. Pat Robbins and his wife sponsored a film. So these are your friends and neighbors, and they're paying good, hard money, cold, hard cash they're putting down so that you can get a chance to see these really important international films on the horizon.
Thank you all.
So I guess we'll leave it there. It would be nice if our director could put up the website at the bottom of the screen. So that's going to be VTIFF.org. Everything's there. And you can go check in on the history of the film festival, too. You can see past festivals. You can see everything that there is to know about the VTIFF. And so that will be going down from the 20th to 29th this month of October 2017 at the Main Street Landing Performing Arts Center here in Burlington, Vermont at the corner of College and Lake Streets. There will be additional lunchtime shorts up at the BCA for the weekdays of the festival. And there will be a whole series of events to draw you in, bring you in. If you're not already a movie junkie, we'll make a movie junkie out of you. If you aren't already making plans to dig your hands into this deep, wonderful international spectrum of cinema, which offers itself up here, this is your chance. There's no better time to sink your teeth into this than now. So we want to thank Orly Yadin, the executive director of Vermont International Film Festival, very much for working so hard to make this film festival what it is today. And we'll see you all at the movies.
Thank you.